Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Courtside with Christy and Gabe on the Her Hoop Stats podcast network. I am Christy Winters-Scott, joined as always by my guy, Gabe Ibrahim. Gabe, we have a litany of women's basketball topics to discuss. And first, we're going to start with number one.
Oh, yeah.
South Carolina taking on number 2, Stanford. What a series of epic proportions this was in terms of drama, with South Carolina fighting back from a program.
That was crazy.
I was going to say program worst, but program best. What
It's
do you say
when
they fought back from a program record, 18-point deficit to win that game? I mean, they just showed resilience and just grit and toughness to come back against Stanford in that game.
The South Carolina team, we've said on almost every podcast we've talked about college basketball this year. This team is just incredible. From the coaching, like Dawn Staley just had some really great X's and O's adjustments in the second half to stop that Princeton offense. And of course, Stanford was hot in the first half, colder in the second half. That's how basketball works, but she took advantage of it. And I mean, I don't know what more I could say about Aliyah Boston, so I'll just give you her stat line. Against Stanford, the number 2 team in the country, 18 points, 11 rebounds, 5 blocks, 4 steals. Just give her the player of the year already, right? There's not a debate. That's the player of the year.
It is. And, for me, it felt like she had 10 blocks. I don't care. Every time she was contested in the paint,
incredible. She
said, no, on a repeat, on a loop. Mm-hmm. She was insanely good on the defensive end. And yes, her 18 points and that baby hook right in the middle of the paint, unstoppable, just awesome footwork, ability to have great body control in there, knowing that she's going to draw, a lot of different defensive actions coming her way. But she was just amazing to me in terms of what she was able to do on both sides. It wasn't just her offense, it was her defense as well that was tremendous. And wow, 4 steals from the post position. I mean, you're doing your work down there if you're getting 5 blocks and 4 steals.
No, and you can see how much work has gone into her conditioning, being able to be physical for all 40 minutes of a game on both ends of a court. Because last year, at the beginning of last year, we kind of questioned her conditioning because she was missing a bunch of free throws. And you brought up the good point that that's a conditioning issue. And I think she talked about throughout the season how her conditioning was an issue. And then this year you could see not only is she looks more in the Asia Wilson model of big.
Yes.
Yeah, all right. I kind of want to bring this up. Is she better than Asia Wilson was at South Carolina?
I was going to tweet something last night. Not necessarily she was better, but she looked like and reminded me of Asia Wilson last night. But I was so, engaged in the game that I said, I'm not going to tweet that. It was back and forth and I was going crazy. So, but I did think that last night in the game, especially in the second half, I was like, wow, she's doing it on both sides. Her energy is amazing. I think there was one block that she had down there, and I think it was on Wilson on the other side, number 3 for Stanford. She blocked her shot so hard and just stood there, and I was like, that looked like Asia Wilson.
I don't think a shot
on Wilson from Stanford.
I don't think a shot has ever been more blocked than that shot because it barely left Anna Wilson's hand. And it was immediately spiked into the earth. I thought I was going to leave it dead in the court. That's how hard she hit it. It made this noise oh God, they're going to need to go out there and replace the hardwood because of how hard she spiked the ball into the ground. I don't know what you do about her. I don't think there's anyone that can stop her. She actually took 4 threes, which I found interesting. She's definitely willing to do it. Her first one was awful because she was just so jacked up. When you get like that, you're just like, I'm going to shoot it. And it went, it clanged off the backboard and the rim and went sailing. But I don't know what you do about it. I don't think there's a player or a program that can really stop her. Because I thought in the first half, I was like, wow, Stanford has a great matchup. They actually have people who can stand up to Aliyah Boston and not get killed on the offensive glass, and
Right.
by the end of the game, they had lost the offensive glass battle 18-11, right? Like they lost the rebounding battle. Actually, they won the rebounding battle, but that offensive glass battle was huge. And that's, I think, a big reason why South Carolina won. I just don't know how you stop Aliyah Boston, because you need to send 2 players to her. And then once you do that, well, guess what? You have a bunch of other giants and great players around her. It's just an incredible team. Destanni Henderson too. 3 weeks off. 3 weeks she had an injury, and she, you could see on the bench how much she wanted to be out there with the team. They took care of business, but getting her back just put them right back into that, like, we're pretty much unbeatable if things are going well.
Yeah, no doubt. And when you said, about the Giants being around Boston, I mean, I know, it's not the stature on the outside, but what a giant Destanni Henderson was in that game, man. I mean, her hands, lightning speed, reactions, getting live ball turnovers when South Carolina needed something to get them going. And she was that spark plug for them. No doubt about it. I was calling her AI. I was just like, look at little AI out there. I mean, that's how disruptive she was defensively, but also that's how impactful she was on the offensive side. I mean, she was just the X factor for sure for South Carolina in terms of their mojo and their fight back ability in that second half. I mean, down by 14 at halftime, down by as much as 18, a program record. And then you come back and you fight, and you circle Aliyah Boston's numbers because they're gaudy and incredible. But you also have to look at the energy and the underbelly and the untold story of Destanni Henderson and her impact on this game.
Yeah, no, Hendo was unbelievable. And actually, is her nickname Henny? She goes by Henny, not Henderson.
It's Henny.
Henny? Okay, Henny.
Henny,
right.
Yeah.
Henny was incredible. And whatever you want to call her, that's what she was. Because I mean, she just really has that sense for the moment. I do like that AI comparison. I would say it's AI in college, though, more so.
No, Philly AI.
I was thinking it kind of looked like AI at Georgetown, where it was that defense, those little pokes. She had so many of those little pokes, and South Carolina in general really caught Stanford, because the Princeton offense is methodical. It is the same thing. Every single play Stanford runs comes from almost the same set. There's different variations, obviously, but it's almost the same movement every time. So it requires patience. And South Carolina, what they did in the second half, led by Destanni Henderson, was start poking the ball out. So you couldn't just stand there in the high post or even at the 3-point line, because that ball was coming out. So it forced Stanford to make decisions faster. It forced them into turnovers. Stanford ended up with 20 turnovers. And then it just kind of came up in the offensive end for South Carolina, and they pulled away in this game. And I think Henny was a huge part of that. Leticia Meeher as well. I want to shout her, because she took over guarding Lexi Hall for a little bit. She guarded pretty much everyone on the roster for Stanford. I just thought her defensive versatility was really incredible, and that's a player on the bench for this team. It's like they're bringing her off the bench. They're bringing Camila Cardoso, who's 7 foot. Like, she played 6 minutes because they have too many options. They have too many options. And I'm just so impressed constantly by the South Carolina team. You look at the season they're putting together already. Wins against a number 5 NC State, number 9 Oregon, number 2 UConn. We've already talked about those 3 since the last time we recorded. Their last 3 games. Wins against number 8 Maryland, number 15 Duke, and number 2 Stanford. I guess the question for me, is this team going to go undefeated? Because I know the SEC is a great conference, but the rest of the schedule looks really, really easy by comparison.
I mean, just the way that they fought back. I mean, that motor that team had, and Dawn Staley at the helm, and she saluted the fams. She calls the fans the fams. She saluted the fans there after the game. And I mean, it was just a great atmosphere. And I think, the SEC, like you said, is definitely tough. I mean, Georgia beat NC State. Yeah. So, I mean, these are teams that are going to be going for it during their conference battles. But when it comes down to the end in February, when we're preparing and talking about the NCAA tournament, who do you think is going to win it? And I know that's fast forwarding. Today, Gabe, I am calling it and we can hold this recording, I'm calling that South Carolina is the front runner right now, to win it all at the end of the season.
I'll go a step further. I'd be shocked, not surprised. I'd be shocked if this team does not complete the job. Injuries can happen. But they didn't have Destanni Henderson for 3 weeks, and they beat 3 top 15 teams, And I'd be shocked. I'm going to go a step further and say will be shocked if this team does not win the championship because of all the things they got going on. And frankly, they could even falter in the SEC schedule, and there'll still be a 1 seed. I don't there's not. They have how many did I say? I said 6 wins against top 15 opponents. And it's not even New Year's yet. It's December 22nd. That's incredible. That's incredible. Insane. That's an incredible basketball team. I don't know how many more things I have to say about them, because I know we're gonna have to come up with some things. We're talking about South Carolina all year, but this team is great. The only set I want to hear if you're concerned about this, Zia Cook, 1 for 9. Yeah. She's had some games where it's up and down. Sometimes I'm like, oh, this player is the best player. This is one of the best players in the country. She's the person I want taking the last shot. And then other games like this, I'm a little worried about her. Are you any concerned about Zia Cook?
I think she has to be consistent. We know that she's good. We know that, she is one of the staples to what South Carolina likes to do on offense and defense, for that matter. And so I just think it's consistency that is, ringing in my head. Can you night in and night out be that player that we know you are? And I'm sure Dawn Staley has had that conversation with her, watching film and whatnot. And I'm not sure what it is that is taking her out of her rhythm or out of her routine or what she likes to do on the floor. And it's hard, like you said, there are so many players on this team that can kill you if you try to shut down another. And I think this is a great example of that. And while Cook has not been producing her typical numbers and her typical stat line, South Carolina is still winning games. And that just speaks volumes to their depth and their balance. But having her at her best, that game's not close. Right. And that makes a difference. So yes, it was dramatic. Yes, they had to fight back, but with Cook playing at the level we know she can compete, that game is a different game for sure.
It's way less fun, so I appreciate it. Thanks for thinking of us watching this game.
That part.
She's just an entertainer. She just wants it to be entertaining.
Right.
I think she'll be fine. I think, to a certain extent, this is also something that teams can prepare for. There's not much you can do about Aliyah Boston. I think one of the things you can take away is those pin downs, is those sets that they like to run for Zia Cook to get catch and shoot opportunities and, force her to do some things that she doesn't like as much. I think as teams have gotten more tape, and especially after she has a big game like she did against Maryland, they can kind of adjust to her. Right. And then that's something that, we can take that away. So we could take it away. And I think if her team wins, I don't think she cares at all about her numbers. So that's just one thing. We have to pick nits, right? There has to be something. On Stanford, so early in the game, obviously, they were up by 18. Yeah. I was thinking this is a team that has a great matchup for South Carolina. They have enough size in the interior to at least compete on the glass. And like I mentioned, they won the rebounding battle. They have enough shooting to spread South Carolina out. They have enough speed to push it in transition. They have a great coach. They have a great system. You're not going to get too out of sorts with it. However, the turnovers have been killer all year, 20 turnovers in this game. And we can go back through all of their other games and you'll see plenty of turnovers in their losses. So on Stanford, where do you see this team in terms of the hierarchy of women's basketball this year?
Well, I mean, I'm going to fall back to that word again of being consistent. I think, having that 18-point lead, sometimes human nature can give you a fool's gold. Okay, the game is won. No, two halves. And so I think sometimes you can get a little comfortable. I love the chess match between Tara Vanderveer and Dawn Staley. Tara Vanderveer coached Dawn Staley with USA Basketball. You know, they have a long history of respect and knowing one another throughout the game. And obviously Stanford and Virginia played when Dawn was playing there. So I just love that whole full circle moment, if you will. But with regards to what Stanford needs to do moving forward, they have to keep their foot on the gas pedal. And I'm sure that's something that Tara Vanderveer discussed with the team. I just think that Cameron Brink, I don't think she should have been the one at the end of the game to get that ball, because Aliyah Boston was just taking her lunch money every time she came in there for the most part. I don't know what the percentages were when she was matched up with Boston. That was quite a gamble. And the fact that Brink took a mid-range turnaround fader in crunch time, I don't know if that's where they wanted to go. I thought that Brink should have stayed up at the elbow area. And Haley had a mismatch because she had Destanni Henderson on her. I'm like, back her down. Like, that's what I was thinking. And I know, I don't know what was drawn up in the huddle, so I'm not trying to coach Stanford. So I think they just need to make better reads. And sometimes the defense is going to take away your initial plan, right? Coming out of the huddle, sometimes, okay, we're running this. Oh, they doubled, or, oh, they switched that, or, oh, they did something that's going to change what we do. So there has to be a good read at that moment. That's just my thought. I think, late game decisions are, what can do you in or can win you games. And I just thought that was a critical possession for Stanford. And I just think moving forward that those instances on the court, and this is not an indictment of Tara Vanderveer by any stretch, because she is revered by me and so many others, but just for the players, I think sometimes you come out with the best laid plan, Gabe, and things change because of what the defense does.
Yeah, I think it was a read situation, like you're saying. I think it was probably drawn up to either run a normal Princeton set with some variation, maybe to get Haley Jones in that mismatch with Destanni Henderson. But there's also, it's just like, you have to go fast. I think I understand why Brink did it. I don't think that was the play. Obviously, the play was to set up that post up to Brink to then do something or try to go towards the basket. But I think, when you're told you have to go fast because we're down one, you have to do, I think that kind of gets muddled in the situation. I understand why Brink thought she had to go fast, especially because she had all those fouls, and she had moments where she was trying to make up for it. So I think she was just pressing a little bit and maybe didn't see, Haley Jones, or didn't see the ability to throw it back out, and just thought, hey, I'm going to shoot it. And to her credit, it almost went in. She's one of those players that it was a bad shot, but hey, a bad shot makes a great highlight. So it would have been, if she makes it, it's a different story, but I agree with you. I was a little disappointed in that final effort there. But I'm with you. I'm not going to question.
No.
But here's why Stanford is 8-3 rather than 8-0. Obviously, one of those games they play without Haley Jones. But they are eighth in the 8th percentile for free throw percentage, shooting 61% from the line. That'll lose you games. They're turning the ball over. Actually, the turnover rate's not that bad. They're in the 66th percentile for turnovers per game on herhoopstats.com. So 15.6 turnovers per game, that's really bad. And when you look at their losses, you look at how high those turnover percentages are in those games, it becomes very clear that those are the problems. You got to make free throws. You gotta not turn the ball over. And I know you as a coach have probably said this, a million times, right? Like, you got to take care of the ball. You got to hit your free throws. And if you do those two things, you're giving yourself a chance to win. I think Stanford's taken away a chance to win with those things, and hopefully it improves throughout the season. But it is a little disappointing when a team's not good at free throw shooting. That is one of my pet peeves.
Yeah, that and the turnovers you're talking about. I just think, Stanford, it's South Carolina drove that bus home and got that win. And, they had to fight for it. When you're talking about a team like Stanford, it's frustrating because that those things are correctable.
Right.
And like you said, the free throws and the turnovers, those start adding up in terms of possessions lost when you don't maximize. I mean, your free throws, you go up there for 2 shots, that's a possession. You get that ball turned over, live ball, and Henderson's going the other way. That's possession that you don't even get an opportunity to score, when you're turning the ball over. But I think you're right. It's more frustrating when free throws aren't made because obviously there's no defense.
It kills you.
Obviously, it's something that you work on every day, and it's a focus factor. I just think that when you have those opportunities to win a 2-possession game, and you look back at your free throw percentage for the game, and you're like, man, we left so much there that we could control. Like if we just go up there and go through our shooting mechanics and knock those in, it's a game changer. And that's frustrating too. But it's also encouraging because you put that work in mentally because you already know how to shoot. Yeah. You shot it since you were 3 years old. Like you understand what it takes to get the ball. It's just a matter of focusing. And I am a testament to that. Like in high school, I could not shoot free throws very well at all. And I busted my behind, to change that because I didn't want it to be on me, like for the team. I wanted to be able to help the team as much as I could. And my freshman year of high school didn't happen for me. Yep. Missed free throws with 7 seconds left. And that was the game. And I thought that was on me. And my coach told me, hey, it's the whole team. It's not on you. And I'm like, that's on me. No. I'm like, and it's never happening again. It's never happening again.
And it's something in your control. But I think to this point about free throw shooting, I think Cameron Brink, she's a great player. And sometimes you watch her and you're like, man, she has so much talent. But both her free throw shooting, she's shooting 47.9% right now. And her fouls have to get under control. I mean, those two, that the free throw percentage needs to go way up. The foul rate needs to go way down because she's a great player. But honestly, at this point, I really think this team is better with Ashton Prechtel on the court than with Cameron Brink. And you saw in the first half, Brink went out early with a couple fouls and the team kind of caught fire when Prechtel was out there. And we saw this in the Final Four. We saw this through the tournament last year that Prechtel does something for this offense that gets them going in a different way. And I think, Brink is just not there yet. And we see so much potential from her. So eventually I think she's going to get it together. I hope it comes together this season because I want to see this matchup again. Hopefully in the tournament, in the late stages of the tournament, maybe the Final Four.
Oh yeah,
that'd be a great third. You need a trilogy, right? All the great boxing matches, trilogies, great movies got trilogies. This rivalry needs a trilogy. So anything else on Stanford?
Yes, that last play where Aliyah Boston lost her balance on the free throw line. We're talking about free throws anyway. Let's talk about that for just a whole moment because what are your thoughts on that? I mean, they showed the replay. She was up on her toes like Michael Jackson and she didn't fall in the lane first, but her body momentum was in question. What do you think on that?
I think it was the right call. I believe he went to the lane first. That's the rule. Hey, it's kind of in football, they have this issue with offensive linemen, or actually what it was a defensive players drawing the other team off sides because everyone does the clap snap now. So in football, everyone does a clap snap. So the defensive players were clapping, and then they had to outlaw that. So maybe we have to outlaw this on the lane violation where you're kind of, because she was kind of pulling her over. It wasn't just her momentum, but I think what really drew Belibi in was the fact that she was trying to get that position and Boston was moving in, and then Belibi just had to go because you're kind of pulling on each other. So I think it was the right call, but maybe there's a rule change there that they could look into because I think she was definitely drawn into the lane violation.
She was drawn in, and it was the proper call according to the rule book. Mm-hmm. If you're reading the rule book, that's what it says. but they don't say anything about, doing the tap dance, swinging of the arms backwards, trying not to fall in the lane. They don't have that in there. But man, I believe his foot went in first. It was like 1-2 very clearly on the replays there. And you saw Boston did her best on all 10 of her toes. Do you hear me? She was up on all 10 of those things and kept herself out of the paint first anyway. But yeah, I just thought that was an interesting way to end the game. And you could see Tara Vanderveer, like they replayed it so many times. So I was watching different things every time. And I saw Tara Vanderveer's face right away saying, like we need to look at that. She was saying, look at it, like replay that. Because I think she thought Boston pushed her in.
I thought Boston was in first at first. Because like you're saying, she was on all 10 retributions. I was like, I think she was in first. No, I mean, hey, put that on the player of the year compilation. End of the year. That's a player of the year play.
There it is.
That's a player of the year play. Just heady, smart play from Aliyah Boston, I guess, or just being super lucky. Both those things are going into being a great player, right? So yeah, we should move on though. We've taken a lot of time.
Yeah. Just that one little play that was impactful though. That was a big play.
No, it was a huge play. It was a huge play. That was really interesting though. I maybe we should have a longer talk about the lane violations. I got a lot of thoughts on lane violations just generally. We don't call enough of them. So I'm glad they called one, but that one was really obvious and it was kind of weird.
But at the time of the game,
right?
Time and score, that made it dramatic.
You gotta call it because she's in the lane before well before the shot. Not at the time. It wasn't close, so they had to call it. But I should tell everyone to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're watching us on YouTube.
Yeah.
Hopefully that means I'll put it up on YouTube. UConn, we've gone way over our time on everything.
That's okay. We'll be brief here.
I will give you all of the UConn stats because I know there's people that are going to relish in hearing all of the bad things that are happening to UConn at the moment. So they have lost to number 1 South Carolina, a unranked Georgia Tech team, and number 6 Louisville recently. The Georgia Tech loss was their first unranked loss since 2012. 44 points is their worst offensive output since 2006. They are 6-3, their worst start since 2004. They are ranked 11th, which means they have fallen out of the top 10 of the AP poll for the first time since March 7th, 2005. I was 13 years old. 313 weeks.
So was I. No, I wasn't. I digress. Go ahead.
They have been ranked for 533 consecutive weeks. They'll probably continue that because their schedule gets a lot easier. And they haven't lost consecutive games since 1993. They're hoping to avoid that when they play Marquette. Those are all the bad things that have happened to UConn. My question to you, can they still get a 1 seed?
Well, that's not all bad things that have happened to them because they have a boatload of injuries too.
Yeah.
And to add that on to all.
I thought it was a given. I mean, so obviously Paige Becker's out, AZ Fudd's out, Nika Mull, I think, is still out.
He's still out.
Yeah, so it's tough. I mean, they're rolling thin, but
yeah.
What do you think? I mean, because Paige is supposed to be out for until at least the end of February,
right?
AZ Fudd is unclear when she's coming back. So, I mean, are you worried? You worried about him?
I'm worried because as we were talking about South Carolina and how Destanni Henderson missed 3 weeks and South Carolina didn't miss a beat. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just one player. I know that. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, they're also missing a high-powered freshman who came in and she's out with a knee injury too for South Carolina. So, I mean, they're missing players. I think it's a concern because they haven't been able to win without those players on the floor. And yes, they're upsets and I get it. But it's the same way when Maryland went to the Bahamas with 6 players active and they lost those 2 games down there and everyone's like upset. And I'm like, they have injuries.
Right.
And so, yes, it's bad that they dropped out of the top 10 for the first time since whenever, but it's also, and it's not an excuse, it's a reality. So don't get my comments twisted. Like I'm patting them on the back, like, whoa, it's okay, baby. Like, it's not like that. But let's just look at what we're looking at. Like bare bones, like they're missing key pieces to their team. Maryland in the Bahamas, they were missing key pieces to their team, 2 starters and a 6-man that are impactful players statistically and defensively. I just think that we're talking about them. I am concerned because they haven't been able to get those top 10 wins or top 15 wins, and beating a non-ranked Georgia Tech team who plays staunch defense, by the way.
Yeah,
and Nell Fortner is amazing and what she's been able to do down there. And Nell, yeah, if she's listening. But I think that it is a concern for me, for them to be able to sustain expectations when you talk about UConn. And they lost to transfer as well in the last month.
Right.
Poffenberger left and the other kid just left last week, right? So they lost 2 kids to transfer. They have 4 injuries, and then they have players that are trying to hold the fort down, and they're tired, man. They're going to play bigger minutes. They have different roles. They have, Westbrook has got to, everyone's like, yeah, she's got to do it. And I'm like, everybody else knows she has to do it too. The opponents know she has to do it. So they're going to sit in her lap. So now it's tougher for her.
They all need to do it.
I'm concerned. I'm concerned about UConn right now.
I'm concerned about UConn too. I mean, I think obviously like getting more bodies is going to be huge, as you're saying, for the minutes, and they get tired.
For sure.
But it's just this offense, it's just stuck in the mud. And I think, maybe getting a break now with Christmas, it'll be nice to kind of get away, and then you're not thinking about it as much. But man, it's just like, you look at the offense and there's just nothing going on. There's not enough movement. I really appreciate what Stanford does is like, they, like I mentioned, they have their sets. So it's like, okay, we're missing someone. Well, you step in and you know what you're supposed to do exactly on every play. And I think with UConn, they just got into such a rhythm with, okay, Paige is going to do this and Paige is going to do that. And, then she took over so much of their offense that it now becomes a problem that they don't have her. But I think, this team has a ton of talent. They should be better. I think Georgia Tech, as you mentioned, really good team.
Yeah,
underrated. I think they should be ranked heading into the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not a team I think that should be beating even this UConn team, even this injured UConn team. I think that's a very disappointing loss for them because I think they're better than that Georgia Tech team is, even with all the injuries. So I am concerned. I don't think they're going to get a 1 seed because I think they would have to win out, which means they absolutely have to beat South Carolina in that rematch.
Yeah.
And they absolutely have to beat Tennessee. I'm not sure even beating South Carolina is enough if they win the rest of their conference games. But if they don't, they have those 2 big games that they have to win because the Big East, no offense, not the strongest conference in the world. Yeah. So I think they're going to have trouble getting up to that 1 seed. I think they're going to, we'll see how good Kristen Williams and Westbrook and Olivia Nelson-Ododa. I need to see a lot more from y'all. They have a lot of great players, so I expect more from UConn, even with these injuries.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do as well. And I think, with the Big East, I mean, they have Marquette coming up next, like you said, but I mean, DePaul's putting up 100 points every game they're playing. So Coach Bruno has got them going. So I think they're going to have, especially with a team like DePaul that's pushing tempo like that, and they don't have the numbers. I mean, I don't know when they play that game, but I think there may be some concerning alarm ringers in the Big East, and it's not a cakewalk all the way through it. I think there's some teams that are struggling, like Butler, and I understand that, but it's they may hit some pitfalls in the Big East.
Yeah, they got Marquette coming up on after the break, first game after the break, December 29th, at DePaul, December 31st, so New Year's Eve.
There we go.
Bingo. And then they're coming here at Georgetown on the 5th of January, which that game is in ESA.
It's at ESA.
And yeah, Creighton's a pretty good team. Oh, they play Oregon too. I failed to see that on the schedule. They play They play at Oregon. They lose that game, they're done in terms of the 1 seed. I don't know. I'm concerned. I think there's reason to be concerned. I think Gino's going to have to change a lot of what he's doing. I think, though, getting this really long break, that might save him. We might come out to a new UConn team. Okay, we got to go lightning round because we have like 5 minutes left. So I'm going to tell you something. Just give me a quick thought on it. Okay, we've already mentioned this game. Number 13, Michigan, 74. Number 5, Baylor, 68. As you mentioned, for Michigan's first win over a top 10 program. Aliyah Brown had a big game. What are your thoughts?
Love that game. Love that Naz Hillman was fouled out in regulation.
Mm-hmm.
And they went to a couple overtimes, and Michigan was still able to get that win. I think that says a lot about Kim Barnes-Arico and Leah Brown running up the court, pushing the floor down, saying too small on that layup. That's encapsulated the whole game for me. That was just toughness by Michigan in that one.
You can hear Kim Barnes-Arico on the latest podcast. I forget what the name of your other podcast is.
Christy's Court on the film 68.
Christy's Court, the one that she does without me, which well, whatever. I'm not mad about it. I'm not mad about it. Another overtime game. Number 17 Georgia 82. Number 2 NC State 80. That's a big old win for Georgia against a really good NC State team. What'd you think about it?
Loved it. I loved the celebration of it as well. And oh my gosh, Joni was in there and they were jumping around. I just love that. They had the guts and the courage and the fight in that game, and they displayed it in that overtime, and it was just fun to watch.
Yep. And
they just knew the momentum was building, and they just knew that they had that win, and you could feel it. It was awesome to see.
Georgia, a team that could give South Carolina a run for their money. I'm excited to see that matchup. I'd still pick South Carolina against everyone, but that's an interesting one. Okay, moving on to WNBA coaching news. Pokey Chapman interviewing for the Phoenix job. What's your reaction?
Loved it. Actually sent her a message, and she said there are a lot of people that are in the running for that job, but I told her if I was GM, I would put her in there. I don't know, but again, I'm not a GM. I said that twice today on the podcast, but I would love to see her get back into the game. I mean, she's just such a wealth of knowledge, decades of experience, and I think that team would learn something from her.
Yeah, Letitia Trammell also in the running for the Phoenix job. Which I think would be a great hire. Shelly Patterson in the mix for the New York job. She's been an assistant there for a while. I'd be very interested in that as a possibility for New York.
I'd love Shelly. I just have so many connections with these coaches that are up for these jobs. I think she would be magnificent. I mean, she's paid her dues. She's done the work, and now it's time for her to reap the benefits. She's more than ready for that.
Yep, I agree with that. And it would be interesting. Although Becky Hammond's also in the mix there, and there was an interesting conversation that Cheryl Reeve had with Alicia Clarendon and I believe Ariel Powers. They're all doing like this live show. And she basically called out the NBA for saying it's a waste of time for women to expect a head coaching job in the NBA because of the culture that exists in the NBA in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion. She says that's basically just window dressing. And, the culture at the top with general managers is such that they will not hire a woman. I tend to agree with her. And I think GMs are going to rue that decision once at least one GM starts hiring a woman head coach.
I agree. I thank you for sending me that article because I hadn't seen it and what she said. I mean, Cheryl Reeve is a coach who has won, 4 championships in a 7-year span. I mean, she was executive of the year a couple seasons ago. I just think that listening to what she has to say is more valuable than we are giving her the voice to have that kind of opinion. And I think more people need to hear what she had to say. And I think that it's very true. And she also said that, they need to hire women, not just as coaches, but as GMs and decision makers. And that is what is going to move the needle in terms of giving women a chance to be on the sidelines and be the head coach of a men's team in the NBA or in college for that matter. I think that's going to change the narrative and change the story in terms of opportunity. And that's the word that I came out of that article with, is having the opportunity. I mean, you have the skills and the ability. Now, where's the opportunity? Exactly. And I think that's what so many of us are waiting to see.
Yeah. And it's a little ridiculous, honestly. Like I think we're still in the point in the NBA where you're hiring women as diversity hires or to keep someone off your back. So I think that's wrong. I think it's stupid. I think teams are missing out on a great talent pool. And frankly, exactly. I like working with women more personally. So I would like to see that more, but it's just like you're missing out on talented people by not really considering all of the options in front of you. And I think if teams continue to do that, they're going to continue to fail. And that's why I think you see a lot of teams that are failing. I think the teams that are more diverse and more inclusive are the teams that are tending to win more. I think the teams that are less inclusive and less focused on that lose a lot more. That's my take on it. And I appreciate Cheryl Reeve and Leisha Clarendon taking that up and saying it as it is, because not a lot of people do that. Not a lot of people say it how it is.
Yeah, we need to be listeners and not just listeners, but apply what we're hearing and listening to, and not just hear it and say, oh yeah, that's true, and then keep it moving. Like, no, that's true, and what are we going to do about it? Right. I think there needs to be more than just problem stating. There needs to be problem solving or issue solving by taking action. And all the steps are laid out right there. There's a blueprint, but let's see how that is received and how that moves in our game. And I think the sooner the better. And I think it's going to happen, but I think it's going to be a process for sure.
I think it is. I hope it is at some point, because it's stupid. It is stupid. If you're an NBA person listening to this, you're an idiot if you're not seriously considering women for all your positions, because it's really dumb. You're eliminating half the talent pool. That's all I have to say on that. We got Texas and Princeton going on now. I'll probably go watch that for a little bit. Princeton's actually really, really good. Texas is up by 13 already though, so there's that. Right. And then we have Notre Dame DePaul tonight. That's an interesting little matchup. And then we'll take the break for Christmas. So Merry Christmas, Christy. I'm glad you're home with the kiddos. I'll be flying to Miami tomorrow.
Oh, poor thing, flying to Miami when it's freezing cold up here, and you're gonna be at the palm trees and the sunset. Well, Merry Christmas to you anyway. Happy holidays to you and your family, and enjoy the sunsets. Happy holidays to everybody. Merry Christmas to everybody. We will see you on the other side of the holiday. Always talking hoops here on Courtside with Christy and Gabe. We don't have to go home, but we have some eggnog and some other things we got to get doing for the holidays. Thank you all for listening in on Courtside with Christy and Gabe on the Her Hoop Stats Podcast Network.